the group that's going to be very, very usually on the defensive organizationally, is going to be that narrow band, middle management, right? Because they're in the middle. You got top management, you got the folks who are in the community at the bottom. I hate to use that term, but it's like that, right? So that's kind of and so you see this sort of defensiveness that occurs.
And I'll vote for the generation curious, but definitely
yes,
because I can see, and I have hundreds of students in sustainability and digital transformation in my work with Cornell, for instance. And I always tell them I have the privilege of a multiplier factors. You are 20 and I'm alone, so I'm learning from 20. You're learning only from 1.
That's so true. I would say both of you have a great mentality, because that's also a special trait to me, to really see the potential and learn from the younger generations. Trust me, not everyone does that, especially depends on the region and area. I definitely admire that quality, and I think it's a mutual exchange between the younger ones and the senior ones. So I definitely admire that kind of exchange.
It is true. I mean, it's not. But you create sort of a seed, if you will, and so your seed kind of propagates a bit, and so but I think it goes back to, a question that I kind of alluded to is what your brand is. How do you define your brand and your personal brand? And so it goes to what your personal brand is. What is it you are comfortable in doing, and what is it you're not comfortable in doing? And you're doing it as of the genuine you, not it's authentic. It's an authentic Isabella. It's an authentic Manuel. It's an authentic you. Those are principles that only you adhere to. Nobody's going to take that away from you, right?
And maybe I want to call the attention of the audience. You mentioned this month, and there shouldn't be a month. It should be a year and the same decade of women in technology, in STEM. And you so much. What's your secret, actually, Monique? I know I'm sort of walking away a little bit from the sustainability, but what's your secret for all your accomplishments?
No,
because you are one of the most accomplished women technologists, but also ethicists, also active in all this. IEEE, it's the top engineering organization for us. I'm a double E.
Yeah, right. So I think, well, thank you for asking that question, but I always have to put the humble me, right? I have had wonderful mentors, both men and women, in coaches in my career. I think this is something to basically say it's the power of the and it's not a non-zero game here. Not everybody becomes a winner. So let me just say that from the very beginning. I also believe that you have to be able to know when you can pivot, and know when you can want to change, something. You can always remain into a space that you're so comfortable in, but you become a sort of a defense. You've got to be able to put your scanners on, which is sort of an art in itself, and kind of say, oh, this is a space that we have to pay sort of attention to. And I think, Isabella, you know this very well because you do this, right? In the sense of, this future around us. What is it going to impact me, etc. So when I got involved in ethics in IEEE, it was in 2016, actually, right? And it was a launch at The Hague. And it was ethics and autonomous systems, and it broke down. There were papers that were published after that in The Hague, and I thought, whoa, this is a space that I don't understand, but I want to know more. I want to know more. And then it just clicked to me that this is a space that we have to care about it, right? And of course, there's been longer parts of that in the entire journey. My mantra in this is that if you live, and I always have this, there's a pin. I'm not wearing it today, but if you live in your comfort zone, life begins when you're not in your comfort zone. If you're too comfortable where you're at, that's a red signal for me. It's a red flag.
Yes.
Yes. No,
Yes.
And if you can,
can I have a vote too?
Yes. I mean, I met a person who was in Hollywood and basically said to me, if you don't write your own script, a script will be written and you may not like it. So you have to be able to take that charge, right? You have to be able to come out of your comfort zone. And I mean this. I mean, I went out and got a degree in blockchain and digital currency because I like to understand what I don't know. I don't know, and by the way, it's still evolving, right? And so lifelong learning is the point I want to say. And also getting out of your comfort zone. And people, what happens when they're so rigid is that they're not, this goes to the transformation, digital transformation. These are the people that you have to take on and bring them on the journey because they are fearful of that transformation. They're fearful because they don't know. And this gets into skilling and reskilling and so on and so forth. They have been the expert in a particular technology and they have made themselves this expert by definition. And it's okay to have a certain depth of technology understanding, but you have to be able to understand where you're going wide, to be able to connect dots. Isabella knows this. She does it. And so do you, Manuel. Connect dots across the way, across organizations, across the technologies, and kind of formulate, oh my goodness, this has a blueprint. This has something that could form a strategy potentially, right? So it is. And it takes time to be able to do that. And it takes, what happens is, in an organization, I think there was something that was descriptive, an hourglass that has time, right? You got the top, you got the narrow bend, and you got the bottom. This is sort of an organizational dynamics. The group that's going to be very, very usually on the defensive, organizationally, is going to be that narrow bend, middle management, right? Because they're in the middle. You got top management, you got the folks who are in the community at the bottom. And I hate to use that term, but it's like that, right? So that's kind of and so you see this sort of defensiveness that occurs. My point in our discussion, and it's a fantastic discussion, is to take everyone along the journey. And when we're talking about digitalization here, it's to be able to say, look, you are a subject matter expert. And I remember, well, Manuel, you'll know this, X.25 technology. Believe it or not, it exists in some organizations. And to be able to say, okay, you get to have a chance to look at another technology that has an impact in networking and grow yourself, right? But I think this is what's important here. To be able to have people be comfortable and learning new things and being able to have a say in it and what it means for them and what it means for us all organizationally. And that's an art. So to your question is, get out of your comfort zone. That's where a colleague of mine once said, that's where the magic is.
And also we should think, as engineers at least, that we're going to have multiple careers. Think of mechanical engineers specialized in car industry.
Yep.
Engines, transmissions, metallurgy, and all this. And now you have electric cars.
Yep. You will have. It's true. You come out with this. I've developed this. So you come out with, I'm going to be, in this particular space. And then what happens is, this is why organizations are picking. This is why the topic of interdisciplinary skills is so important. People are saying, I'm going to hire this person, doesn't know anything about quantum mechanics, but certainly knows a lot about, a particular space. Maybe it's an anthropologist, right? Maybe it's somebody who probably looks at the human use of what it is we're about ready to do, and can actually produce a view of it, right? And this gets into sort of what it means from a use of a particular sets of technologies. But I'm seeing that more and more. I'm seeing that more and more where people are coming in with doesn't have that particular background, maybe in connected cars, but you know what? They can produce a particular view in terms of what's humanistic, what's of value, challenge, put challenging questions in place. The questions that Isabel is putting in place. Hey, I don't understand why you're doing that. What are we doing? Who's it for? Who's the customer? Who's going to be the big beneficiary of this? And I think that's a real important topic to have. This is to be able to say, if again, it goes back to, are we living in a filter bubble? Do we risk it? And it's like, I hire you because I know you. I know you, I know you, I know you. But it's a filter bubble at the end of the day. And I'm not taking a risk on somebody and saying, no, I'm going to hire this particular person, or I'm going to engage this particular person. They are way on the other side of the spectrum of what it is we do as a core business, but they certainly could present value to us. And I think that in itself is an art.
I would like to take you a little bit on a different thread again, and
Yep.
put you on a time machine and go, dial back about a month and go to Davos, because you were there. What did you like to share with our audience?
Sure. I was there with colleagues of mine from the Hedera group. I'm an independent director in Hedera, but I'm not speaking on Hedera on that discussion. But I will just say this. In Davos, the theme was cooperation in a fragmented world. And I think that's, we have war, we have, problems in the environment. You have war, you have the strife that's happening in Ukraine, for example. You have all of the situation, all of this kind of strife that's occurring. Environment, how do we care about the environment? What do we need to do, I think, as people? And so those created what I call agoras of conversations of value. And so Yu Yuan was there, by the way. I mean, he came in, what about what's happening in countries that are, people say emerging? I would say they have emerged. If you look at the African continent, that's an example. What's happening in the space in terms of investments, what they want, right? Where we could say something that's created from a particular country is adopted by other countries. So those are the types of exchanges of conversations. Cooperation in a fragmented world. So what does cooperation in a fragmented world look like? Well, we somehow have to, in spite of the fragmentation, be able to connect ourselves. And I think this is an example of what you're doing, is that level of connection, right? And so I think that being able to say, look, this is going to have an impact to this use of energy is going to have this use of a particular technology will have an impact to the environment. Are we putting an ESG discussion around this, right? That is responsible use of technologies. What does it mean to have the level of ethics in part of our use? And ethics is part of this particular discussion, but ethics that is contextual and responsible. And how do we bring policymakers across this discussion, right? Policymakers from all over the world. What is the policymakers want to have? Because policymakers are part of that discussion. So cooperation in a fragmented world becomes quite interesting. And by the way, that is where there was a launch of, next WEF, or a WEF that is developing sort of this metaverse WEF, right? To involve 10,000 people in part of the conversation. And, who could be part of that agora, and companies and organizations that are coming across to help develop that. And so what is that level of responsibility going to look like? So cooperation in a fragmented world is exactly that. And I think it's more or less discovering what countries are doing. You had country houses together. They were all there, the countries inviting each other to experience what it is they do, come visit our countries, and so on and so forth, but more or less having responsible conversations. And that is imagine, yourselves, right? What is Isabella and Manuel, what does cooperation in a fragmented world look like? When you walk away from these types of very intense discussions and you make wonderful, I would say colleagues, you kind of make the acquaintances of people, then you have to think, is that just the one-time environment thing? Do we continue? How do we want to continue in, what it means to be in a fragmented world, but how do we connect up? Because you cannot just cut the world and aside. You've got to have some level of you really do. You have to have some level of responsible cooperation, because our world, to the earlier discussion, to the earlier point made, social media is fast. It's fast. We've got to be able to connect to one another, to speak a language that is harmonious, and to across these what are divides, and somehow find a way to communicate. And so that is the cooperation in the fragmented world. It's basically saying, this is my world as I see it, but how do we actually, it is what we see, how do we actually connect to one another rather than increasing the divides that we see?
This is where the Greek philosophy, dialectics, and the Asian philosophy of Yin and Yang come essentially together. You have both in the same time. We tend to, you mentioned, generations and so on, we tend to apply labels, but essentially in a complex world, you don't have one or the other, you have both. You have to live with both.
Yeah, I mean, you have, sort of the power of the and, right? You sort of have
yes.
This is the whole thing. You have the power of the and here, and you have to be able to, I mean, I've been living, when I lived in Hong Kong, and having traveled throughout, Asia, I had, it was consistently learning certain arts, and learning, I think it's everything is sort of a learning. You have to open, it's cultural divides, right? Cultural, how do we actually unite certain levels of culture in our fragmented world, right? So, and I think that's a part that we have to be really
accept the artifacts of culture. We can go for another 2 hours very easily, but before we but we'll invite you back. So this is a promise. The other thing, before turning to Isabella for questions, because I think I was the more part of questions on this interview. I'll ask a very unfair question. If you look at Davos and put a thermostat image, from extreme pessimist to neutral to extreme optimist, what would you set this thermostat?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think I don't want to say it's for me, because I'm always posing questions. It could always be dystopian, right? It's so, but I would say cautionary optimism, right? In the sense that now you have youth who are involved in the discussion. I think it's more, you have to say that youth are very much part of that discussion. I think it's a cautionary optimism. It's easy for me to be neutral, but I don't think that would be the right response. I think it's a cautionary response, optimism, in my opinion.
So turning it to Isabella, but maybe this is a title for the next book, Cautionary Optimism.
Cautionary optimism. And I share with you, Monique, the unconscious pessimistic attitude towards today's digital world. I guess when we look into the ethics and all these unaddressed questions and concerns, it's very easy to be looking like a little bit not optimistic, but I guess we need this balance to see the both sides of technology, where everything is about the opportunities, the advantage, the possibility, the good things about technology. There's another huge side of coin that has not been addressed close to enough, in my opinion. So blessed to hear everything you shared and our ongoing conversation at this talk series to talk about things that really needs to be addressed. I will personally follow up with another call to go in more depth on this topic. This is not close to enough for me to hear from you, but it's good enough for this talk at this point for our audience and for this talk series. Thank you very much for taking your time. And to end the conversation, we usually have another open question kind of for the guests to pick and choose your advice, your call to action for this digital world to our audience, for people who wants to do something, make a difference.
I agree. We were just at the tip of the iceberg in terms of the discussion. Here's my call to action. Create the world you want to have, not the one you want to avoid.
Create the world that you want to have, not the one that you want to avoid or you will avoid.
Perfect. You perfectly.
Thank you.
That's the compact statement. We are responsible for that, all of us.
So before we close, I want to congratulate you for, the many things, and we attach your biography to the talk because we didn't do justice by, of course, Isabella picked up very key points, but there are so many that we cannot fit it in a short conversation in the short conversation we had today.
Well, I thank you all. I mean, and I'm, as I said, honored to be part of the, AKFI discussion and agoras. I think, gosh, it's wonderful that you actually are doing this, both of you. This is part of the journey for everyone, and I look forward to a follow-up, and I'm very humbled to have met you both.
Oh, thank you very much. And we have 12 students, 12 interns working with us as volunteers, and many people like yourself, which are leaders in their careers, in their direction, that join us on these talks. So we are very fortunate that we can call upon this large brain trust, if you want.
As I said, the world is. This is why the cautionary optimism, because we have, there is this. There are people who truly care, and again, Isabella, I'm going to read your book. I am definitely going to read it. I'm going to learn.
Monique, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. And thanks to all of our audience as well for tuning in, join this conversation with Monique with us. Make sure you join us every week for a new episode and where you can gain new perspectives on how to mitigate risk and create value by integrating digital transformation and ESG. So until the next one, goodbye for now. Bye, Manuel. Bye, Monique.
Bye, Monique. Bye, Isabella.